Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel. First on the docket, yes, that's right, Josh Duggar, rhymes with hugger. How much time is he going to get? I will explain. Second, a story about a brave girl who was nearly abducted. Third, a mother accused in her son's death is now accused in a murder-for-hire plot. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Crime Talk, and my name is Scott Reisch. Thanks for watching. Now, if you haven't done so already, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe as well, and don't forget to hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content. Now, I apologize for the sporadic content this week. I was doing some of that real lawyer stuff. That's right, doing trials. Yes, victorious. Absolutely. I love it when you go to trial and people tell you you can't win it and you win it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Let's get to the docket today. Josh Duggar, that's right, rhymes with hugger. Certainly not pronounced Duggar. We certainly learned that, didn't we? Anyway, for those of you who are not familiar, Josh Duggar is in fact a former reality TV star. He grew up on 19 and counting. Well, now he's 33 years old. He's had a little bit of trouble in the family. I think he's going to get the label black sheep here pretty soon because he's certainly not staying out of trouble. As you may note, he had a couple of allegations made against him by his sisters long ago that he may have done something inappropriate. The family apparently has acknowledged it, and they're moving on. All right. Well, now, like I said, we brought you this information a couple of weeks ago. Old Josh was arrested and charged with receiving and possessing child pornography. He's currently out on bond. He has conditions related to his release. One of those are that he obviously has to have an ankle monitor. He cannot be around anyone under the age of 18 except his own children and only when supervised by his wife. And finally, he can't reside anywhere other than the residence that was approved by the court, which turns out to be some family friends related to Josh's parents. Now, they had a little incident. They apparently have called 911 at some point, and they said that they don't feel comfortable with the situation right now because they believe that people are basically hanging out by their house and it's making them feel uncomfortable. Their words specifically were they no longer feel safe. And that was one day after old Josh moved into the neighborhood. All right. So let's talk about what kind of sentence Josh Duggar is going to receive. Now, we give Mr. Duggar the complete and absolute presumption of innocence. And that presumption of innocence will, in fact, remain with him throughout and until the prosecution can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, unanimously to a jury of 12 people, or unless he pleads guilty. So now we have presented this, but we have the indictment here as it relates to Josh Duggar. He has one count of receipt of child pornography. He also has one count of possession of child pornography. Now, what I'm going to do is basically kind of outline the conversation that his attorney is going to have with him. More than likely, the United States attorney has probably sent over, or there's been some communication regarding a plea offer in this particular case. There's a trial date currently scheduled in July. That may get moved back depending on whether the defense moves for a motion for an ends of justice continuance so that they have time, sufficient time, to go through the evidence, look at it, analyze it, see what motions practice they would need to engage in, and whether they need a further time to get to trial. Now, anytime under the federal sentencing guidelines, that's the biggest thing that you have to consider in a federal case, all right? So each count here, receipt of the child pornography and the possession of child pornography, more than likely the United States attorneys would offer a plea to one count. Say, for example, receipt of child pornography. Then you say, well, Scott, what is the maximum penalty going to be for these charges? Well, so the maximum penalty on count one is not less than 5 years and up to 20 years. Obviously, 20 years is a long time. So at some point, the defendant, Mr. Duggar, is going to have to decide whether he takes a plea and whether he goes to trial. Now, certainly, if he's innocent, he should probably go to trial. Our system of justice does not necessarily like people pleading guilty to crimes they didn't commit, particularly to get out of jail. And here's the thing. Mr. Duggar is in federal court. He is not going to get probation, okay? When you go in federal court, there are very few crimes that make probation a possibility. Chances are, I'd say 99%, you are going to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. All right, how do we get to that number? Well, under 18 United States Code 3355A, which are basically the principles of sentencing in a federal case, one of the first things that the court has to look at is where does this crime come out on the federal sentencing guidelines? All right, so the first thing we have to do is take a look at the federal sentencing guidelines. And one of the most important documents in the entire book, which is rather thick, is the sentencing table. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, let's explain. Each federal crime is given an offense level, and I'll explain that more in greater detail. Each federal crime is given an offense level, and then there's certain calculations that go from there. And then you have one's criminal history across the top. As you can see, if you're a criminal history category 0 or 1, let's just randomly pick an offense level, say 23, you're at 46 to 57 months. But if you have a terrible criminal history, it makes sense that if you are getting in more and more trouble, you shouldn't be receiving less punishment for committing crimes. Kind of goes against the whole principle of sentencing. So as you can see, I randomly picked level 23, no criminal history whatsoever. The possible penalty is 46 to 57 months. If you go all the way across the other side over here, it's 92 to 115 months. Well, what's a criminal history point? It's a conviction. It could be something as simple as traffic. It could be felonies. It depends how much time you served in custody. Was it a juvenile matter? You get extra points if you're released from prison or county jail, depending on the length of the sentence, and you get in additional trouble. So it moves you up across the top. It can move you up across the top of the federal sentencing guidelines. So let's take a look at Mr. Duggar. For his offense, 18 United States Code 2252A, it's a base offense level. He starts off at a level 22. Now, you may recall there was some information that came out at the preliminary hearing, and that was being presented to keep Mr. Duggar in custody. But these are things that the United States Attorney already knows. So under the federal sentencing guidelines, it says, first, is the defendant's conduct was limited to the receipt or solicitation of material involving the sexual exploitation of a minor, and the defendant did not intend to traffic or distribute such material, you get a 2-level reduction. So he goes down to a level 20. All right, but hold on. And it came out at the preliminary hearing that there were photographs or videos that involved prepubescent minors or a minor who had not attained the age of 12 years of age. Guess what? You go up 2 points. So you go from a 20, you're back to a 22. Then there's another section under the sentencing guidelines that you have to consider. It says, did the offense material portray sadistic or masochistic conduct or other depictions of violence or sexual abuse or exploitation of an infant or a toddler? I recall hearing testimony regarding that there were infants there. So guess what? You go up 4 levels. So 22, now all of a sudden you're a 26. As you can see, the punishment's getting higher already. Next question under the guidelines. The offense involved the use of a computer or an interactive computer service for the possession, transmission, receipt, or distribution of the material. What does that mean? You used a computer. Oh, guess what? Add 2 more points. So now you're at a 28. We also heard that there were a number of images, right? I recall hearing 200 plus images. All of a sudden, now you're at 28. Now you're up to level 31. Not looking good right there. So this is a guideline calculation that one could use if Mr. Duggar went to trial and lost. And the counts would basically merge because they're really the same stuff. So it really doesn't matter. So if he goes to trial and he were to lose, his guideline sentencing range would start at 108 months, right? What is that? 12 times 9, 108, right? About 9 years to 135. You can do the math, about 10 and a half. It can also go as high as 235 months, which is the maximum. And in theory, the court could always give him that because the maximum penalty is up to 20 years. However, if Mr. Duggar were to enter a plea of guilty, he would receive 2 points for acceptance of responsibility, which would take him down to offense level 29. And offense level 29 is right there. Now, I'm not aware of any criminal conduct where Mr. Duggar has had any convictions, and I don't know about traffic, and that can actually move you up and over. But as you can see then, we're going to assume he's a criminal history category 1. Puts him right in the range of 87 to 108 months. That's roughly 7.5 years to 9 years in prison with a guilty plea. Now, I assure you, this is a conversation that Mr. Duggar's attorneys are having with him to explain the federal sentencing guidelines. He doesn't get that 2-point reduction if he doesn't accept responsibility and he takes the matter to trial. And like I said, the court can always impose the maximum sentence if they choose to do so. The defendant, Mr. Duggar, if he were to plead guilty, could also file what they call a motion for variance, which is basically, hey, judge, these federal sentencing guidelines used to be mandatory. Literally, when you went to federal court, you just kind of followed the numbers and wherever you came out, that was the range. And that was the range that the court had to follow. Well, the United States Supreme Court in a case said, no, you're taking away the authority of an Article 3 judge. They have to have some discretion. So this is just one factor, but most judges come out pretty close to this, and if not, they have to justify it really well as to why they did that. But the defendant, basically, then you have a good old-fashioned sentencing saying, hey, I'm a good guy, haven't really been in trouble, made a huge mistake, I'm getting treatment, I'm going to do everything I can, don't punish my family, blah, 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 blah. Then the court says, well, yeah, you weren't thinking of your family when you were off committing these acts, so that's really not a mitigating factor. I think one could actually say that's an aggravating factor because you didn't care about your family. Your potential addiction probably played a bigger role in it. So that is how Josh Duggar is going to be advised by his attorneys as to whether he goes to trial or enters a plea. And if he goes to trial, remember, all of a sudden now he's at 12 years and he can always be up to 20. So Mr. Duggar is going to have some hard decisions to make, particularly when your pregnant wife and 6 other kids are at home and who's going to take care of them. I'm sure his parents will, but more than likely, ladies and gentlemen, he's going away. All right, well, after that log segment, let's have a brief word from our sponsor. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. Next on the docket, let's talk about this brave young girl who basically fought off her attempted kidnapper. Her name is Alyssa Bonal. And for those of you who haven't seen this video, she is out waiting for a friend, playing with a friend, and literally this guy, the suspect, Jared Paul Stanga, gets out of the car, attempts to grab her, and Alyssa fights like hell. My hat's off to her. She's a brave young girl. I hope she's not too traumatized by this, but this is a good rule of thumb. If somebody's trying to take you, if somebody's trying to do something to you, you fight like hell, all right? Submission is not a way to get away. Fight like hell. She did that, and now Jared Paul Stanga is in custody, facing charges of attempted kidnapping of a child under 13, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without the intent to kill, and battery. His bond is set currently at $1.5 million. Somehow I don't think Mr. Stanga is going to be able to make that, but I am so happy that this young lady got away, so brave, and this is the kind of situation you have to be so vigilant out there, ladies and gentlemen, because you never know when something like this is going to happen. I don't know if Mr. Stanga was watching or if he was just driving by, but talk about he thought it was a crime of opportunity. Talk to your kids. Tell them. Fight like hell. Alyssa's mom had just had that conversation with her, and it probably saved her life. Next on the docket, a mom accused in her son's death is now accused in a murder for hire plot. That's right, you can't make this stuff up. Well, I guess Heather Reynolds, what a catch. Well, her and her boyfriend, 44-year-old Jeffrey Callahan, were charged this week with first-degree conspiracy to commit murder. Reynolds was already being held at the jail on a slew of charges, including murder and endangering the welfare of a child in connection to the May 10th, 2018 death of her 17-year-old son, Alex Reynolds. During the investigation into Alex's death, detectives uncovered evidence that Reynolds and Callahan were allegedly conspiring to have another individual killed. The prosecutor released information that new charges were being released, but no additional information as to the specific scheme that was involved. Heather Reynolds was arrested back in 2018 when officers responded to a report of an unresponsive child on the lawn. Prosecutors alleged that the 17-month-old had bruises around his mouth and nose, and Reynolds told EMTs she believed he may have accidentally ingested something poisonous. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, although no one had accused Reynolds of any wrongdoing, she blurted out, "It's not suspicious. I didn't do anything wrong." Of course not. Well, the medical examiner concluded on June 7th of 2018 that Alex died of asphyxia and his death was a homicide. Blood tests showed trace levels of isopropyl alcohol, which is used in antiseptics and acetone, prompting the medical examiner to conclude that the infant was suffocated after a wipe containing the alcohol and detergent was placed over his mouth and nose. The police looked at text messages between the defendant and her boyfriend from the previous night, revealed that Reynolds was becoming frustrated by the boy's apparent lack of interest. Witnesses also told detectives that Reynolds had expressed the sentiment that her toddler son, the victim, was an obstacle to her relationship with her boyfriend. Well, needless to say, the grand jury indicted her back in June of 2018, and the case has been on hold. She, of course, adamantly denies that she's done anything and that she is not responsible for the death of her child, and her attorney says that she has suffered greatly as a result of this. Obviously, we'll give Miss Reynolds the presumption of innocence, not only on her case involving the death of her child, but for the murder for hire plot as well. Because, that's the kind of guys and gals we are here at Crime Talk. Everybody gets the presumption of innocence. All right, next on the docket, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Our dumb criminal contestant of the day. And I apologize because of trial this week. We didn't give you the winner, but it was an overwhelming landslide. That's right. The man who used the screen identifier for his court WebEx appearance as Buttfucker3000, he is the winner. Congratulations. What does that mean? That means you can get a Crime Talk mug at no cost to you. That's right. You will receive this mug, and you can do with it whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want, and you can probably take it to court and not almost get held in contempt. All right, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Please meet Jennifer Dorrit Weber. Now, she had a tough night the other night up in a car dealership in Mankato, Minnesota. Apparently, the police responded to multiple 911 calls about a naked woman walking around and jumping in and out of vehicles at the car dealership. Now, nobody suspected that she was doing anything wrong, except maybe pleasuring herself while splayed across the front of a pickup truck. When the police responded, they in fact did find Miss Weber lying across the floor of the second row of this particular truck. Well, and what was she doing? Well, she was in fact naked, just as the reports came in. She was on her back with the feet in the air, pleasuring herself. Apparently, Miss Weber was also making nonsensical comments and thought that she was in St. Petersburg, Florida. Asked what brought her to the Mankato area, she replied, "To please the boys." Weber continued to pleasure herself as she spoke to the officers. Now, after some prolonged negotiations, Miss Weber finally exited the SUV and was taken into custody and transported to a local hospital. Apparently, police say that they recovered methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia following the conclusion of the May standoff. The SUV owner told police that the vehicle was being serviced and that Weber did not have permission to enter the Chevy. That's right, one of the elements of the crime. Well, she has been charged with indecent exposure, which could require her to register as a sex offender in some jurisdictions, possession of narcotics, driving while ability impaired, and entering a vehicle without the owner's permission. One, I think, could reasonably conclude that Miss Weber may have had some sort of adverse reactions to some illicit drugs. And certainly we hope she gets help for that. And certainly this will be one night that Miss Weber may never remember, but one that she'll never forget for sure. Miss Weber, you are a dumb criminal contestant of the day. Congratulations. You are now our contestant and the only contestant thus far this week. So you got a pretty good chance of being the dumb criminal winner. Good luck. All right. Thanks for watching. Once again, I apologize for our sporadic content this week just because I was in trial, but we did manage to go live, and we'll continue to put up videos. And I don't think I have trial set for several weeks to come, so we are good to go. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.